So got my name changed, got my bottom surgery, got my face surgery, and I thought I'm done, I'm good. Lived that way for a while. Once I healed, my face healed, my body healed, and I felt like I was myself again, I realized I wasn't any happier.
There's so many things that you can check off a list, and once I do this, I'll be happy, and once I do this, I'll be happy. And eventually I was starting to run out of things to check off. And then I was 1 week out from having top surgery, and it was kind of the final thing that I wanted to have accomplished.
We're going to jump right back into these fascinating stories, but this was filmed as a part of a documentary by the One Life Network. Now, that's a network that I'm a part of. This isn't something just from YouTube that I grabbed and put together for my channel. This is something that I helped in the planning stages for and to help in fundraising. But what I can share with you is these brief vignettes with Heather and Alex, two detransitioners who have captivating stories. And I want you to hear me say that at the time this was filmed, Heather was a practicing Muslim. Heather's journey is complex, and when you see her, you're seeing her in the One Life studios, where my ministry partner and pastor, Brett Nicholson, was there ministering to her with the gospel every chance he got. We definitely want to see people like Heather come to faith in Christ more than we want anything else. But for the purposes of this project, her story of detransition is important and speaks to our cultural moment on its own. With that, here's Heather and Alex hoping to encourage someone else out there with their own process.
Yeah, so my story, it's a longer one than most people's. I didn't have a kind of bifurcating moment. I didn't have anything that, a single event or a single set of circumstances that led to it. It was kind of an evolution. It was a bigger evolution of a lot of other ideas. So I would say it really started from being a kid all the way through adolescence. I was a little bit more of a weird kid. I was on the fringes of society, the nerd kids, the smart kids. I hung out with jocks. I was all over the place. But for the most part, I didn't fit in a lot of places. So when you don't fit in a lot of places, you go with the other misfit kids, which, in my generation, born in 1986, being 36 and all, my generation was the LGBT. So when you were one of the odd kids, you hung out with those kids. And those kind of became my friends all the way up through college. So in college, I labeled myself a fabulously straight, that I wasn't gay, I wasn't trans. I was like, I am nothing, but I'm here. I'm here to support. I'm here to be everybody's friend. I'm, different than most of the rest of the world. And so I thought that was kind of my place. Over a couple years in my early 20s and mid 20s, I still kept exploring with who I was and what I was doing with myself, sexually, spiritually, emotionally, and everything in between. I'd say in my late 20s, I think I was 26 or 27, that I got introduced to a good friend who sparked most of the changes into my adulthood. I experimented with drugs. I was into the rave scene, and I jumped through all these hoops with those types of party scenes, and got introduced to different lifestyles. And one of those different lifestyles was, hey, do you think you're a girl? I had a lot of qualities like that, and I was very different in a lot of ways. So I experimented with that. I was like, well, I remember that night she asked me that. She said, hey, are you a girl? And I told her yes. And I was high on a couple things and all that stuff, but stuff like that you kind of take to heart, and you go, well, what was that? Was that something more? Was that a part of the night? So I guess that was the crux of the start of my journey, but that had the whole history of my adolescence behind it, and thought about transitioning to a female. And every time I thought about it, I gave myself weeks and weeks of coming back to the same idea. It just felt right. It really did. It felt like it fixed so many things about myself that I had struggled with. It felt like it was solving problems I didn't even know I had or was going to have. Mid to late 20s, 26, 27, I decided to transition, and then the rocky journey through my transition from there, but that's how I got started.
Well, there's a lot of reasons that people transition. I'm in a detransition community online, and a lot of us have some similar stories and similar reasons. My particular reasons are just a lot of trauma, sexual trauma when I was a kid, abusive relationships, an undiagnosed eating disorder, undiagnosed autism. The biggest reason I transitioned was just running away from being a girl in every way. Like I said, I had a lot of sexual trauma when I was a kid, and I felt like none of that would have happened if I wasn't a girl. And then I was in an abusive relationship for 5 years, and internalized misogyny played a big part for me as well.
Everybody has their own reasons, but you could catch a lot of fish with the idea that men are running towards something. Usually the men that transition to women are either chasing a little bit of attention, chasing something else in them that's feminine, chasing some kind of set of ideals of something they want, and women tend to chase something or run away from something they don't want. So thankfully I didn't have to have that, but I did have the male side of it, which is the equivalent of chasing something I did want. There was this identity and this persona and this idea of something I wanted to embody.
My experience as a man was really good. I actually felt a lot more confident that way, and like more brave, and like all the things that I couldn't. I mean, I guess I felt like I couldn't be as a female, and then I just kind of thought one day, I was like, why couldn't I be all of those things? And then I kind of thought after I detransitioned that it was like, my dad passed when I was a baby, and then my stepdad did a lot of, bad things to me when I was a kid, and like none of the men in my life were like protective of me, so I was like kind of becoming that protective person.
For a lot of people, was the first thing that they were celebrated for. For a lot of people, they were outcast, they were hated, and they said, I'm trans, and the world celebrated and clapped for them, and they're not ready to give that up yet. They're not strong enough willed yet to stand on their own 2 feet without the support of that community, without saying I'm trans and rainbow flags and all these things that make them feel proud to be part of a community. They can't say that yet, and so we're not hearing about it. And when it is talked about, it's talked about in either hush tones or that you weren't really trans. If I tell someone I detransitioned, they will tell me, well, you weren't really trans then. You were mistaken. I am really trans, you weren't.
What led me to detransition was that I had ran out of mile markers. Like there's so many things that you can check off a list, and once I do this, I'll be happy, and once I do this, I'll be happy. And eventually I was starting to run out of things to check off. And then I was 1 week out from having top surgery, and it was kind of the final thing that I wanted to have accomplished. And I still wasn't happy. And so I was like, well, if I have this done and I'm still not happy, and then what? So I decided to put myself in sensory deprivation for a very long period of time. It was about a day and a half. Just to kind of force myself to sit with myself without any kind of distractions. And about halfway through that, I was crying, I was really upset, and I was trying to figure out if I wanted to continue doing this or not. And I just, out of the blue, heard this voice say, when you go to get judged, which name will you use? And I didn't feel scared or anything. It actually felt, like really safe. And I just felt like really warm all over, like the sun was on me. And then I was an atheist at the time, and I was like, if there's somebody talking to me right now, then like I need you to make this go away, because I really just cannot deal with this anymore. And I had prayed and begged somebody to make it go away for a long time, so I was kind of wore out with trying the prayer method. But I did, and it just ceased to be a problem ever since that day. It just basically went away. When I joined the detransition group, I had one friend named Alex that he really helped me to understand that I wasn't too far lost in the process. My hair was falling out. I had facial hair. I didn't want to be an ugly girl, and he really helped me to realize that since he had done far more to his body than I had, that living a life detransitioned was completely possible.
I met Heather, and we actually became really good friends. like legitimate friends for a good while, and not just because of our transitioning status, but because of who we are as people. And that reminded me that I was not my gender, and that I was not my transition, and I was not my journey. I was so much more than that. And so connecting to these other people who were also so much more than that, that had kind of taken off this hat, taken off this label of being trans to be themselves again, felt the same pride that I did the first day I decided to become trans.
It really does make me happy to pursue this. I really considered just sweeping all of this whole chunk of my life like under the rug and moving forward and pretending like none of this had ever happened. But I really can't in good conscience just move forward and see all of these people struggling and just keep my mouth quiet.
So got my name changed, got my bottom surgery, got my face surgery, and I thought I'm done, I'm good. Lived that way for a while. Once I healed, my face healed, my body healed, and I felt like I was myself again, I realized I wasn't any happier. That the things that made me sad before transitioning still made me sad. The big switch for me was I sat down to take my hormones. I took injections, injection into the thigh once a week, and I sat down and I looked at the needle, and then I cleared the air, and it was the medicine was dripping out of the needle, and it just felt very gross to put the needle into my skin again. It felt like I was tainting my body. It felt like I was drinking poison. I knew it would help me. I knew it would help the way I looked, but I was like, how I look isn't important. I stopped shaving, I stopped putting on makeup, I stopped doing all these things because they weren't part of the true me. They weren't part of, I guess, the more unadorned me. I had to do all this work to make myself look a certain way, and I'm not that type of person. I'm not the type of person that needs to look a certain kind of way. I'm just me all the time. And so doing all this extra work just to be pretty felt, it's just vanity. It was all vanity.